No, you're good.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order for the Commission on the City Plan, Tuesday, March 18th. This is a hybrid meeting and public hearing. We have a quorum, and I think we can seat our alternate, Nick Watson. So our first order of business will be approval of minutes from February 25th. And we have a motion regarding the minutes.
This is Elle. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second?
Got a second from Dean. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, so those minutes are approved. I don't see any communications listed. Do we have any?
Nope.
No, so new business is a site development plan number 1007M. Parentheses A, 555 and 575 through 599 Norwich Avenue. Site plan modification associated with access and parking improvements for the development of the Panema Landing Building into a restaurant. The application and property of 555 South Mill LLC and 575 South Mill LLC. Paula O'Neill, Principal, Assessor's Map 47. Block 4, lots 5 and 6, zone PMR and mill reuse overlay district. So, somebody here to make a presentation?
Yes, Brandon Hanfield's online.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Brandon Hanfield, professional engineer, licensed in the state of Connecticut with the Yannick River Consultants, representing the applicant and owner. I believe Phil Biondo's in the audience there, representing both the applicant and owner should any questions arise. I will share my screen and we can get on with the presentation here. All right, so a little history on the project. It was approved in 2022 for redevelopment of the Panema South Mill, which is shown here in the center of this large mill. This is the 2004 aerial. Panema Landing, and just for reference, Norwich Avenue is on the bottom of the page, which is Route 97 and 169. And Providence Street is to the bottom left. And the Shetucket River would be top of the page. Panema Landing is the smaller building, about 4,000 or a little under 4,000 square feet on the west side of the existing South Mill that has frontage on Norwich Avenue. And there's a raised, or there was formerly a raised driveway that served I think it was a furniture business in the upper floor of the old mill. Existing conditions, this is the 2004 aerial with the original survey overlaid on top of it. And the reason I am providing that is the area we're looking at tonight is this northwest corner of the property. Let's see if I can circle that for you here. Terrible color, but that's the area here we're looking at tonight. And in the 2004 aerial, you can see the parking to the north of Panema Landing here. And then you can also see some parking on the upper platforms that's above a retaining wall. And this is the area we're talking about tonight. So there is a history of parking and access in this area. And I just wanted to reference that from 20 years ago. Wheel of Death here. So what we're presenting, here we go. So this is the current 2004 aerial, a little brighter, and you can see a little more detail. Again, the South Mill in the center, Panema Landing in the northwest corner, the parking that is below an existing retaining wall here. And then this is the remnants of that original parking area here. When they did the North Mill site modifications, they reconfigured the entrance into the facility and they regraded and discontinued the old entrance, which was in this area here. So that's why the pavement's been removed and there's no longer access to this upper platform. Apologize for the slow computer. Here we go. All right, so this is the original site plan that was presented to the commission in 2022 for the original special permit and site development plan application. This was approved with conditions, and what you see is a connection in the northwest corner to the original driveway and a driveway that serves the multifamily development and goes around the building in a counterclockwise direction out back. Panema Landing itself was not designated for a specific use, but we did include a restaurant calculation in the original plans, not knowing what the floor plan would be. And our parking table was built upon that for the multifamily use and a Panema Landing shared use as a restaurant. As you can see, there was discontinuing. At the time, we were discontinuing this access point here, and there was no parking on the upper level. And this area was kind of slated for outdoor dining, again, not knowing how the restaurant would function. See if it's a little quicker. All right, so this is the proposed site plan modification. Again, we're kind of focused on this northwest corner here. What we are proposing to do, Panema Landing will be a 2-story restaurant. There will be patron access on both the upper and lower floors. And to accommodate that, we are proposing to keep the curb cut to Route 90 or to Norwich Avenue here. Have a small parking lot that can accommodate an accessible parking space. In this case, it's a van accessible space. We have pedestrian connection from that parking space to the front door of the building. And then to not discourage, but enable patrons to not have to turn around and go back out onto Norwich Avenue, we're proposing a one-way driveway connection. So if this lot is full, it is only 5 parking spaces. They can go in a clockwise direction in front of the building. There will be an elevated crosswalk here. And then they will continue along that original area that was paved. There will be 5 parallel parking spaces there. And then they will continue in a clockwise direction to connect to the lower development at the original entrance. And then in general, the parking and patron space, outdoor space has been maintained to the north of the Panema Landing restaurant and with connection to the lower floor of the restaurant itself. The restaurant has a patron space of approximately 4,200 square feet or a little less. Our parking table was built on that patron space number at 75 square feet per patron. We do have sufficient parking with the additional parking we're proposing for both the multifamily use, which is 146 units, I believe. 148. And the 4,200 square foot restaurant patron space. I can go here to the detailed layout. It's pretty much the same. It just shows the dimensions of how everything works. A few changes to the original plan in addition to the new entrance and driveway connection. We did relocate loading to provide both loading for the multifamily and restaurant use. So the loading is now at the southeast corner of the Panema Landing building. It was up in this parking bay. And we added some signage so that the restaurant patrons that do come onto the site, whether they use the main entrance over to the north or this new entrance, once they get down into this lower area, we are proposing to add signage to actually designate some parking spaces to the restaurant use so we can communicate that to the multifamily residents. We're slated to have approximately 50% of the restaurant spaces, or around 26, to be signed. As patrons make their way out to the south, we are discouraging them from going to the back of the building through signage. And one of the comments from the city engineer, which we can't address, is to provide a striped area here where they can make a turning movement and exit the site should they need to. The last item here, this is the grading and drainage plan to show the changes to the site and to make sure that it can work. And mainly, I won't spend a lot of time on this plan, but we are able to collect the runoff from these new parking and driveway areas along the Norwich Avenue corridor and get them into the existing system that was designed as part of the original approval. We'll be adding a treatment structure because of the additional impervious space that's going to drain that to that direction. And I'll make a note while we're here that what we're discharging to, and it's not well outlined on this plan. I'll see if this is bright enough. Yeah, it's pretty good. So this pipe here is an existing pipe that collects all of Providence Street and points to the west. We are connecting to that pipe, we always were, and that is subject to DOT and the Office of the State Traffic Administrator review. This is a major traffic generator site, so any changes have to go back to them after this commission renders a decision, and they will review the drainage on that pipe as their flow goes through all the way out to the Shetucket River. So that information will be provided to the state as well as the city engineer for review, but we cannot submit that information until after, again, you render a decision. That is the short description. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have before closing out or going through the comments that we've received, or Dan can summarize them. But I'm happy to receive any questions you have on the proposed changes.
Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to comment on something before Dan goes over his memo. I think it's important to know that we were notified by the Department of Public Health and by DEP of material that was being disposed of from this construction site since last week, off-site, that's potentially contaminated soil that's coming off here. And being relocated without permission onto people's private properties, and it's contaminated. And this project has, excuse me, we have potential contamination, and I will read the email from the Department of Public.
Sir,
Okay.
please hold on and let Ms.
So
Rhodes finish.
what I'm
Then
saying is,
when we get to public, or this isn't a public hearing,
No.
but I'll hear comments from you.
Okay.
After the commission has discussed it.
so because this has excavation, that what we're talking about now is this driveway coming down, there's more material that's going to be coming off of this site. So it was my request of the engineer and the applicants and the owners of the property to table this till we have the meeting with DEP on site tomorrow to talk about what the plan is for the soil that's already come off the site, what's the plan of the soil that's going to be coming off with an approval, and we have a real plan in place, a written plan in place from your LEP of how you're going to be disposing of this soil. The applicant intended tonight to come forward and have their application heard, but I really feel that it's important to table this until we have additional information. And I'd like to read from you from the Department of Public Health, from our Uncas Health District. All Connecticut DEP, this is from Patrick McCormick, the Director of Public Health. All Connecticut DEP, Tom Welsh, Emergency Response Coordinator, contacted me today regarding material being excavated at the following properties: 539, 555, and 575 Norwich Avenue, Taffel. There were also reports that trucks have been removing the materials off-site to sell as fill to unsuspecting property owners. In one of the alleged occurrences, oil filters, shingles, and other items were found in the fill. Connecticut DEP and I met with Mike Brand from One Key today. He was told to put a pause on the operation because he is unable to document what is the material that's being stored on site and removed, who may have removed it, and where it was moved. Mike Brand called his supervisor, Alan, from One Key LLC to meet for an appointment outside tomorrow, Wednesday, 3/19, 11 a.m. to discuss the situation and attempt to determine what needs to occur as a result of the findings. We'll be meeting at the One Key LLC office on site located at the center of the properties. I met with Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning and Neighborhood Services for the city, and she advised me on who would be best to invite to the meeting tomorrow. If there are other individuals I may have missed, please feel free to include them. Thank you for your attention. Apologies for this late notice. That's from Patrick McCormick. And it went to Kevin Baum with NCDC, Dan Deniska, Jeff Dewey, the city engineer, Rich Sook zoning, and the building official, Dan Coley, and David Coughlin, which is also with the Hunkus Health District, and to Connecticut DEP. So I just think that at this point, rendering any decision on this would be, I think, too soon. I think we need information about what they're doing with the material that's coming off this site.
Did you want to say something, sir?
Yeah, if it's my turn. And I apologize for interjecting quickly. You mentioned two things. You said potential contaminated, then you wanted to say contaminated. That's where I take objection. There's been some material that was identified that potentially could be a problem. We're going to identify that tomorrow, and we're going to deal with that with the DEP. Okay, whatever that is, I think there was some material that maybe got inadvertently removed, but all the contaminated materials that are on site have been identified by an LEP, by the testing that was done years ago, and none of that has been touched. So we thought maybe there's some material that has been removed, clean material, not contaminated material. With that said, this Panema Landing site plan has nothing to do with the material that was excavated and potentially removed off-site. This is a standalone amendment to the site plan. We believe that we should be able to act on this, and whatever issues that we have with the DEP tomorrow, we'll address, and we'll satisfactorily address. We're not looking to do anything other than do what's right. We have a reputable site contractor, a mediation contractor, Red Tech Technologies, that's been approved by the state. And there are not only our remediation contractor, but there are site contractors. This is a standalone, separate amendment to the project, and I don't believe there's any issue, any concern why we can't move forward on this, why we separately deal with the DEP on the site issue. Any materials that may have been addressed potentially would have been on the back end of the building. To the east. We're on the northwest side of the building. We're trying to work to get a potential restaurant application forward. I think that has nothing to do with what we're doing right here.
Chairman, with all due respect, this is an application for the same property, all three projects, the projects for the housing and for the project of the restaurant was all the same application. We're just looking at one piece, which is the restaurant in front. If we were coming forward and not talking about any kind of excavation on this site, I would not have a problem. I have an issue right now with the commission acting on something without having a plan for the excavated material that's going to come out with this modification. To have that driveway come down, there's going to be additional excavated material. We don't know where it's being stockpiled on the site. We don't know where it's going to be hauled off to. We don't know if it's going to be tested. I think the city deserves to know what's going to happen with this soil.
This site and this area that we're doing with has nothing to do with the area that's addressed in the back, okay, on the east side. So I respectfully disagree. This application should be reviewed on its merit, on its own right here. And we'll address and we'll correct, if there's any correction at all, we'll address that with the DEP tomorrow.
So has there been any excavation on the particular area that we're talking about?
Yes, yes, but there's never been, and if
I
there's.
mean, like in the last month or so?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is that all our areas in terms of identified contaminated areas, sir, are on the east side of the building, on the other side of the building. There's no materials that have been determined to be contaminated on this side of the building, on the Panema Landing side of the building, none. We've excavated the ramp that goes there, and there is a drive that's being graded as we speak right now, but it has nothing to do with what we're doing on the east side of the building. Yeah, so we're prepping the site and we're in the middle of construction. That is correct.
I personally think it's irregardless if it's contaminated or not contaminated, there's material that's going to be coming off and excavated from this area for what we're talking about this evening, for that driveway and for that slope. And we need to know where that stockpile material is going to go on site, which does not show on this plan. We need to know if it's going to be hauled off site and what the end result is going to be. We don't have those answers, and I don't, on the city's behalf, don't want to deal with this again of like, what are you doing with the material coming off this site? We need a plan in place, and I think that as part of this modification, you should be addressing how are you, what are you doing with this soil that you're removing?
On this area, Deanna, if we remove materials, however it is addressed, it will be graded properly, and it will be addressed. As I mentioned to you, there's been no identified contaminated material on the west side of the building in total. None. So whatever materials that we address, we'll properly address. But the contamination of materials that are identified, which we have not touched, we have not excavated below the markings of those contaminated materials at all. So do we have a concern with the DP? Yes, we may have a concern with the DP. We just need to understand and address that tomorrow. But to say we can't move forward on something here, there's no reason not to move forward on this.
I disagree.
Yeah, and we respectfully disagree with each other. And I didn't,
Phil Biondo. PHILBIONDO.
Brandon, do you have any comments regarding this issue?
I can offer, again, just a look back of what we're doing in the area of disturbance. And I just want to point out that where our parking will be is this elevated road that was constructed at some time between 1990 and 2004. So all this fill here was brought in to create a trucking platform to get to the upper levels of the mill. Yeah, you can actually see one of the trucks leaving the site in this photo. It's a little lucky to have that, but so all this fill was brought in, and our intent, or we have to leave the portion of this fill to help create that upper parking platform. So this material we're discussing tonight was fill that was brought in, between 25 and 40 years ago, or 30 years ago. We're leaving this material here and constructing a retaining wall to basically divide the upper and lower parking platforms. And we're simply connecting to the paved area that exists above the retaining wall. And then in this area here, you can see the original driveway. So we're really trying to return the area to the same pattern it had 25 years ago. With regards to excavation, it should be minimal in terms of matching the pavement grades that generally exist now where the cars are parked here. And then again, this entire area was reconstructed as part of the North Mill. So they created this landscaped island here. But underneath that landscaped island, you can see it was the original driveway that served the historical mill. And then they had this connecting driveway to get to this upper platform of parking. So I can't say that there's no excavation, but what I can say is that we need to actually have fill to create this parking area. The east side of this platform had to be removed in order to provide the circulation through the site and along the front of the mill. That was excavated, but again, that was fill that was brought onto the site to create this, which was not natural to the historic nature of the mill. So we're working within this raised platform that was built, and then we're trying to get back to what was here 30 years ago to provide parking for the upper restaurant. That's about all I can offer. I'm not involved in the environmental, but those are my 2 cents on what we're proposing and why we're proposing it.
Chairman, may I make another comment? So I spoke with the engineer Brandon Hanfield earlier today, and we talked about stockpile material that's now located on 539, which is the property just on the right-hand side where you see those cars. In the lower area where like Maria's Treasures, or I think it's called, is down there. There's two very large piles of material there. There is no permit to have the stockpiles of off-site material from this property on that property. There was no zoning permit requested for that. And it's material that's being processed on site from what we're being told by DEP. So I just feel like at this point, there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily following the correct way of getting zoning permits for stockpile material. That's not, there's erosion and sediment controls are really lousy. There's some broken down couple things of hay bales there. And that material is going to be tested by DEP as well, because it doesn't appear to be completely clean. There's brick material in there that may have some residue and material on that needs to be tested. So I just think that jumping ahead tonight without having information, this is a comprehensive site plan. We were only coming back for modification to the restaurant area for the parking lot. But because of what happened over the last day or two, I think that we need to slow down a little and look at what they're doing with their materials management as far as how they're disposing it, where they're stockpiling it, and those kind of things. And we should be getting a report on that so that you can look at that and incorporate that as part of this modification.
I think they're separate, distinct issues. Whatever we need to do in terms of addressing stockpiles or the DEP, we'll address. And we're not out to cut corners. We're looking right now to get a project approved so we could approve development for the city of Norwich. And creating parking here for a restaurant is what we are here right now. We will adequately address other concerns if the city has other concerns. But to hold back a review and approval of a project that's ready to be approved because some concerns that may arise or may not arise, we're happy to address those, and we will. We're not looking to cut corners. We're looking to get something approved in front of us. And I'll leave it there.
Jim?
No matter what the outcome tomorrow, or maybe I should say, if it's a negative outlook and there are contaminants, when is the next meeting? When would we be deciding on this?
I would ask that you table it to
Yeah,
the
April 15th.
April 15th meeting,
Until the April meeting.
so we can have some determination.
Again, one had nothing to do with the other.
And that,
But I'm going to disagree with the applicant.
I think we got it.
okay, all right.
But I think the question is does anybody on the commission want to table this issue? My question to you is, any of the excavated materials from this little project going into these spots that we've been talking about?
Some of the, I think Brandon probably can mention this, some of the area that's been created immediately to the east, where that ramp is. Brandon, do you mind pulling that up a little bit again, the previous, on the east side of Panema Landing?
Oh, the original plan, Phil, the
Yeah.
old aerial,
I
yes.
think it's easier to address. So if you can recall, there's a drive between Panema Landing and the main building. That's the access for the parking. To the east side of Panema Landing, there is that large elevated ramp. That is already on the east side been excavated, and that's been graded out. It's pretty much become a balanced site right now. So we're using that material to balance out the grade. But it won't be going into the back area. So
I guess the question is does anybody on the commission have a motion regarding this at this time?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Next, April 15th is the next meeting. I'll make a motion to table until our next meeting, April 15th.
Anybody second it?
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So the matter is tabled till the April 15th meeting.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, sir. All right, and then we have old business, public hearing and potential action on special permit application, which was previously postponed
Yes, sir. We're gonna ask to postpone this again to April 15th. We got a letter from, I got an email from the applicant granting the commission an extension to that time,
On the site plan.
working on their site plan, and they were a day late with their mailing notifications.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion regarding that postponement?
I'll make a motion to postpone that public hearing potential action till next month's meeting, April 15th.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Nick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's postponed too. I don't see any extension requests or bond reductions,
Okay.
other business, desegregate Connecticut, work, live, ride presentation. Is that tonight?
Yeah.
Yes. And we have someone online. Yeah.
Okay. So is somebody here from Desegregate Connecticut?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Am I able to present?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go right
Could you
ahead.
just identify yourself for the record?
My name is Vali Pendiala. I am an organizing intern with Desegregate Connecticut. And I'm also a resident of South Windsor, Connecticut. So on behalf of Desegregate Connecticut, thank you to the Commission on the City Plan of Norwich for having me on today and letting me present to you about our bill. So as I said, my name is Vali Pendiala. I'm an organizing intern and I'm currently studying at Georgetown University. So Desegregate CT is a pro-homes coalition of neighbors and nonprofits. We believe that better land use laws will make Connecticut more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable. And we believe in what we call an all of the above approach. We want to build more kinds of homes. We want to act at all levels of government. And we want to connect all of the related issues when it comes to the affordable housing crisis. And I just wanted to mention that we are also a program of the Regional Plan Association. RPA is a planning, research, and advocacy nonprofit with 100 years of experience in Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. And it has produced 4 long-range regional plans in its history. The first in 1929, the most recent in 2017, and the most recent plan focuses on transportation, housing affordability, sustainability, and good governance across the tri-state area. So Work, Live, Ride is a state level proposal that incentivizes local communities and organizes state agencies to create more transit-oriented communities. So what this means is we're focusing on creating what we call a post-sprawl future, aiming to create responsible growth around the parts of our communities that already have density, public transit, and existing infrastructure, while avoiding building in areas that are relatively untouched or that don't have a lot of existing communities or density there. And we really want to emphasize that transit-oriented communities are New England character. They're the kind of communities that give us those small, cute, old-time charm main streets that we're all very fond of. And they are the way that we designed for hundreds of years. So these are some examples of existing transit-oriented communities, and it looks very much like what we imagine a New England town to be. So Work, Live, Ride focuses on 3 areas. The first I want to talk about is work and the need to have accessible jobs. So by building in existing transit areas and using things like infill density and creating transit-oriented districts around transit, it helps create jobs and increases access to jobs while also generating foot traffic for local businesses and helps rejuvenate downtowns and commercial districts. It also helps with increasing the number of affordable homes available. It creates more variety to own and rent homes. It offers a better way to concentrate affordable housing spending at the project or voucher level. And it also makes construction more economical to lower costs. And all of this will help combat the affordable housing crisis. We have very few homes available for sale, very few rental vacancies. So by building smart like this, we'll be able to combat some of those issues. Finally, ride. We will have safer streets with plans like Work, Live, Ride. We will create a critical mass for higher public transit ridership, which will not only help combat carbon emissions, it will also ensure that with more people, there'll be more funding for these programs. It'll reduce the number of vehicle miles traveled by increasing the use of transit and other mobility options, and it will also help concentrate growth in environmentally responsible places and stop sprawl. So I also really want to highlight that public transit is far more common than most people think in Connecticut. There's 111 out of our 169 towns and cities that are served by local bus, rapid bus, or train. And there's over 33 million annual bus rides and rail rides. So a lot of people use and rely on public transit. So building around it is a smart idea. So I just want to point out Norwich on the map here, and based off of its location, it's considered a transit community. And that is because of the 9 bus lines and the fact that during rush hour, bus frequency goes up from 2 hours to 1 hour, which makes Norwich considered a transit community. So I just want to go into how Work, Live, Ride works. So it's kind of this Venn diagram approach of towns and state agencies coming together in the Office of Responsible Growth. So if a town chooses to opt in to creating a transit-oriented communities district, which would be designed by their Planning and Wetlands Commission, and then they pass that district, which creates a mixed use, mixed income special district near a train station or bus station, they will receive prioritization for state funding and also technical assistance to build the necessary infrastructure. At the same time, state agencies are prioritizing funding to municipalities that opt in. They also meet regularly to align agency actions, including MRTA and grant making processes around these transit-oriented communities. And they'll also aim to align these districts with economic and environmental goals in the State Plan of Conservation and Development. Both of these come together in the Office of Responsible Growth, or ORG, which serves as a liaison with local governments to help create and plan those TOC districts, and will also help secure state funding. Also coordinates a lot of the interagency communication on the administrative side and the strategic alignment around the state POCD. And then finally, it will also oversee a new fund to expand water and sewer capacity for towns and cities that opt in, because that is a big concern with a lot of towns that have older water and sewer. Municipalities get a lot out of this bill. We want to emphasize that municipalities have local control. It's an opt-in, locally driven process. Town and city planning and zoning commissions or cities on commissions on the city plan will drive the whole process, and they can also opt out. At the same time, ORG will provide technical help on designing TOC districts, which will include general planning guidelines, but a lot of flexibility for local nuances. We want to emphasize that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and we want to make sure that it really fits the town or the community that it's being planned for. Finally, municipalities will receive priority funding for opting in for most discretionary state grants that involve infrastructure. And we also wanted to talk about Work, Live, Ride and MRTA, because we know that Norwich recently recently voted on working with MRTA. And we want to emphasize Work, Live, Ride is meant to support MRTA, and opting in with Work, Live, Ride means you're eligible for MRTA, but MRTA has its own capital, while Work, Live, Ride leverages the rest of the state's funding, meaning that MRTA is tactical in the way it applies funding and support for towns. ORG is strategic. It looks more at the big picture and aligns the whole state in a way that really builds towards the future. And these are just some examples of discretionary funds that are prioritized for towns that opt in. So there's revitalization grants, infrastructure and housing grants, and transit-oriented development grants. All of this makes towns that opt in prioritized for millions of dollars, which can be very helpful when building something from the ground up like this. Also, we have several guidelines for overlay districts that are included in the bill. P&Z and wetlands will determine which transit station to build around. It can be either bus or rail. And the district must be a reasonable size, which is defined in the bill. And we really emphasize that this district can't have excessive requirements for parking, lot size, FAR, setbacks, or height restrictions. So while districts can still require these things, they can't require so much as to discourage development in practice. And these terms are further defined in the bill itself. We also required that affordable housing be built as of right in TOC districts. So these include duplexes, triple deckers, townhomes, cluster homes, anything that's less than 9 homes per development. And then also developments with less than 10 homes have 30% affordable housing, while developments with 100% affordable housing that are owned by a housing authority, nonprofit, or religious entity, we want to build all 3 of these in these TOC districts as of right. So this TOC district will not interfere with other developments proposed within the district other than the affordable housing. Those are the only ones that will be required to be built as of right. So commercial buildings, other buildings that require public hearings, special permitting, things like that, they'll still go through that process. And it doesn't remove other zoning regulations. So design and site elements can be included in the overlay. I know form-based design is a very popular one. Inland wetlands will still review all applications within the district if they touch wetlands as defined in the charter, because we really want to make sure that this is helping the environment, not harming it. So just to talk a little bit about Work, Live, Ride, the bill, and where it is. In 2023, the Office of Responsible Growth entered state law and has been functioning since then. 2024, Work, Live, Ride passed with 90 votes in the House of Representatives, but we ran out of time in the Senate and were unable to go to vote. This year, Work, Live, Ride has a lot of momentum and support, and we were recently voted out of P&D committee on 312 and should be going to a floor vote in the House soon. So when it comes to Work, Live, Ride, I want to talk about some hypothetical options for Norwich if Work, Live, Ride did pass. So there's always the option to do nothing. We're already working with MRTA, and there's absolutely no need to opt into the bill at all. However, by opting into Work, Live, Ride, you can also receive additional support for the transit district that's currently being considered on Main Street, particularly when it comes to funding, and also support for building that transit-oriented communities district overlay, which will help ensure that the district, helps economically for the town in terms of businesses, but also affordable housing, as well as ensuring that the existing transit, the bus stops on Main Street, become even more of a benefit to the town, particularly when considering a lot of the new growth that's happening in New London with the casino and the potential connections between New London and Norwich with a rapid transit bus line. So this is the bill number for Work, Live, Ride if you want to follow it. It's HB 6831. And you can also sign up for a newsletter. I will put that link in the chat. But that is the end of my presentation, and I would love to hear any questions that the commission has.
Thank you for a very interesting and informative presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our guests?
I have a question. Typical projects would vary, as you said, they're gonna be custom designed. What kind of timeframes, do you think, would be, entertained or necessary to develop these kinds of, projects?
By that, do you mean before, like developing the overlay itself, or for approving projects after the overlay's been?
Whatever.
Okay.
You know, overlays, projects, what kind of timeframes would one be looking at?
So for developing the overlay itself, I'm not quite sure, but it would be a process that, you know, would happen until both the town and ORG are, or it would happen when the town is happy with how their overlay looks and it fits all the requirements of Work Live Ride. I can get back to you on a more specific timeline, but in terms of projects themselves, after the overlay is approved, that would just be the normal approval process. So when the commission believes that a project is feasible and is legal and fulfills all the regular requirements, and votes to approve the project, it's just that timeline. So it depends project to project.
Maybe it's a better question, Dan, how do you foresee this
So-
progressing, or Dan?
Yeah, so Valley should know that, hi, how are you? So we are working on our zoning regulations right now, and this is a district that we are considering already for our zoning regulations, and we are doing the MRDA program. The city just last night decided to opt in, which is, again, it's sort of parallel to you. I think what we would probably do, and we're just kind of whispering back and forth each other, is with the MRDA, it's a half mile from the transit. So it's literally from the intermodal transportation center a half mile out, and we probably would kind of keep the same, so we're not doing two things that are, different from each other. That
Yeah.
really covers most majority of our downtown, all the way up to pretty much to like the YMCA, really, from the intermodal.
I just have a question in terms of clarity, for the TOC, can it also follow bus routes in the city? Or is it the same type of thing where it's only a half-mile radius from the transit center?
So the aim is to have it follow transit in general. So creating multiple transit districts is always an option centered around each bus
Okay.
stop.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we might do something like that, in other areas and do that, but the one for MRDA, it's really like the hub, which is really our intermodals, and then that's going out from there. But like I said, we can talk about other areas too. I have a question though. How does Work Live Ride feel about, because I know you're supportive of downtown and Main Streets, you talk about jobs and what this is gonna do. There's a legislative bill that's out there that's considering allowing commercial spaces to turn to affordable housing. Are you familiar with that in Connecticut?
I think we have discussed that.
Okay,
I don't believe we have definitively stated our support for that one way or the other. But I can get back to you on our thoughts on that bill.
yeah, I'm interested because, one of the things that we really do like about this program, and I think, with transit in our downtown and historic preservation and Main Streets and all that kind of stuff in Connecticut, is that we have this mix of commercial uses on the first floors that we like to have, and then we really want to encourage the vibrancy of, retail and restaurants and things. And I'm concerned, as a planner, that the state is considering allowing for any commercial spaces to be used as housing and be able to do that, because I think that that's going to, potentially impact these areas that were going to be vibrant, that we're talking about, having people work, live and play in, basically now just all be housing. And I know there's a crisis, but there's got to be a balance of community needs, and goods and services. So I was just curious if you had known if you guys had taken a stance on that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a set stance on the bill, but what I can say from just a Work Live Ride perspective is that we do encourage infill density and converting existing buildings, but at the same time, we really emphasize the need to meet the community's needs. and ensure that the community has full input and that it's a locally driven process.
Mhm.
So if the community feels that a space would be better used for to be reused as a different commercial building or restaurants or shops or anything like that, it would be up to the community.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, well, thank you again very much for your presentation. Very informative, and we enjoyed listening to all of your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I will send the presentation over as soon as I leave the meeting. And if there's any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
We will. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, anything else for the commission tonight?
Staff report. Do we have a staff report, Dan?
Very briefly, now that I'm back, we're working on the zoning regs. We're gonna get comments on the first 3 chapters back to our consultant, hopefully tomorrow, and then move along from there.
It's a lot. We had a really aggressive timeline internally
Yeah.
to try to get it in front of the council this summer by June. And with Dan being out and everything else, it's just in so
And
much.
also, I don't know if you saw in the paper, we got the planning grant that we applied for CIF for the Norwich State Hospital, for the Gateway Norwich Planning Grant.
And
So that, we're thinking now that once we can get that kicked off, that will probably push back the zoning regs, because that'll be a big part of the results of that.
And we had asked for that grant. That was our 3rd time at it. So if we had received it back a couple of years ago, we'd be there for writing it now, but it happens that we got it now when we're just starting the zoning regs. So it doesn't make sense to not have that information going forward and put it in the regs about what the highest best use should be there. And
It's still
what-
good timing.
It is good timing.
How
It's
much
just
was that grant?
250,000. And, yep, and then the K part, we did get announced, we went out there for a tour last week on Friday with SHPO, and, they have made the determination that we do not need to preserve any of the structures, which, we're really happy about. Because like with Uncas Leap is wonderful, but, you know, saving portion of that building that we have there of the granite mill, which isn't really all granite, it's gneiss, I think it's called, the material, but, that mill cost a lot of money to keep that ruin. It looks great, but it was a lot of negotiation, a lot of more money to go to save that. So we were really
Which was
hoping,
Much, much smaller scale.
yes,
So,
that's what we were hoping that they would look at Cape Part and go, you really need to keep this section of it, because just the shoring up and doing that is so costly. So, they're allowing us to do, some documentation of what's there. So there'll be photographs and those kind of things, and, some interpretive boards. And then the 6th Street Bridge, which is kind of a walking type of small bridge. I don't think it's even a drivable bridge, but it's small. That's going to be kept as part of the elements of that too. So it's pedestrian pathway to get directly from the streets into that site too. So that's how that's going to be one of the historic elements that we're sort of keeping, is that bridge. So we were happy with the outcome, and that is $11.8 million for the remediation and demolition of that.
So what's the first step on the,
As the environmentals doing that, yup. So we are in, when we say first step, there's all these contracts. It takes forever
I
to
would say
get
the
through.
SHPO
Was one of
was the last hurdle to start the process.
And there was 2 hurdles, that hurdle and waiting to see if they would let us use our existing LEP, which is our licensed environmental professional that we went out to bid for as our on-call consultant. And if they were not gonna let us to do that, that would have to be going out again and interviewing consultants. And they did allow us to, because we had gone through a very competitive process and interviewed them. So just this yesterday, I think it is, they told us, so SHPO on Friday, and then yesterday said, yes, you can use your existing LEP. So now it's just doing some final documents and things, and then hopefully starting soon to do the, some of the cleanup work
Yeah.
there. So it's really exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah, it'll be great for that neighborhood. It's really, it's gonna make it's transformative. It will be.
Oh, sure.
what about the Marina building?
So the Marina building, we met out there today. Dan wasn't there, which is about where the signs are gonna go for the money that the state has given, the city to for the demolition of that building and for the waterfront, development area. The city received, funding for doing some improvements down there plus planning. So, we selected a planning consultant, SLR, who was funny because SLR did Unca Sleep and they're working on our zoning regs and they
And the
did our
POCD.
POCD.
Yeah.
They have a really great team. I mean, we interviewed lots of them, but they just came to the table with some great ideas and things. So they were selected for the waterfront planning and outreach on that. So the demolition of the building is pretty soon. Isn't that gonna happen?
I want to say next month.
Yeah, it's happening fast. I think they're ready to award that, but it's not being handled by our office, so I can't for sure tell you that. But, that's gonna be kind of exciting and then at the restaurant, they have not, I think some of the panels are coming from China or something, wasn't there something?
Back order.
Back
Yeah.
order and they need to be measured, so that's happening a little slower. But the restaurant is open at the marina and doing well, and 80 Broadway, Listella's moved over there into what
Are
was,
they in?
Yeah.
what?
Are they in?
Yeah, they're in there and they opened over the weekend, yeah. So, I went to dinner there last night, it's great. It looks a lot like how it looked when, Cafe Otis was, which I'm glad they brought that kind of look back.
Okay, it's for cafe, okay, I got it.
And El Traviezo is going into where
They're,
Stella was.
yep, they're going in there and there's a restaurant that has a strange, I don't remember the name of it, that's going into where Goats was, next to the library.
Yeah, was it like chops?
Yeah, or some Chuppies or something like that. It's like,
Oh,
yeah, it's gonna be like steamed burgers and things like that. So, a lot of little things going on and we're just busy.
what's going on with the apartments up on Main Street?
What, in what way?
Anything, I mean.
They have all their
They're-
COs, right? Yeah, but they're still doing the work on the units for the commercial. So my understanding may be that the Chinese food restaurant, Fire and Ice, might be still going in,
Might be.
might be, and then underneath on the,
Water Street.
Water Street side is like, she does like takeout food and catering.
Yes.
So, that's gonna go in
Are
there.
any of the units occupied over there?
Yeah, they're all occupied pretty much.
They're all
I think
occupied?
they're almost all occupied, aren't they?
Threes.
There are some issues with some, yeah, or at least, there's some issues with the, I think it's the heating systems or there's something funky that they're trying to figure out there, something that
I don't
happened.
know what the lift is. I don't know what they're doing.
I'm hoping they're doing window stuff, so
Yeah.
we're not complaining.
I didn't want to-
There's still some exterior work that they were, we're hoping that they did to get their tax credits. There was some work that they needed to do, so I'm hoping that that's what that's all
I
about.
didn't realize any of those were occupied yet.
No,
Yeah.
there's people living in them, so.
Reading Hughes is moving along.
Yeah, oh my God, Reed
Which
Hughes
one?
is gonna be beautiful, those
Yeah, I see
apartments,
them.
I'm telling you.
Where,
What they're doing.
Reed and Hughes,
oh, reading you?
oh,
What about, the Y, what's going on over there?
why?
That's moving along,
It's
too.
moving along, they're gonna post their bond for the site work,
Yeah.
so, they just emailed me and today, so, they did, all their remediation is completely done, so there's that kind of in between holding pattern, I think financing, things like that, but they're ready to go. And the Hale Mill is moving along really well, and it's going to be a Hilton, what kind of brand? It's a
Oh, really?
Tapestry.
Tapestry of Hilton brand, and it's going to be
Did they
called,
Sell it?
no, they got it, they have it,
Franchise,
branded,
yeah.
yep, it's gonna be called the Admore.
Now, which place is this?
The Hale, the
Down in
the
Yantic.
Hale Mill in Yantic,
Oh,
along the
Across
highway.
from the firehouse.
oh.
So it's gonna be called the Admore, Admore, and that was because it was one point called the Admore Manufacturing or
Family
Mill or
related,
something,
yeah.
yeah. So, but it sounds nice, the Admore, so.
Yeah, sounds classy.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the Tapestry by Hilton's, like online, Dan looked at them, they're
They're
beautiful,
nice.
they're kind of unique,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a tapestry by Hilton, then?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Of the Admore, yeah.
Interesting.
So they're working, not as quickly as I'd like them to, but they're moving along, so.
Yeah,
So
it
what's
is
going on?
There is so much going on and we can't, that's what's really hard on the regs too, is just to have quiet time so Dan and I can work together on them and not be working on, commission stuff or anything else or writing grant is so, it's hard.
If Dan hadn't taken that 3-month vacation.
I know, blame it on him, so.
You did that on
So-
purpose so he could get it
So
right.
we're gonna, so instead of June in front of the council, will probably be later, hope, depending on when the the
early-
plan
early
is
to
done.
Mid-fall.
Yeah,
maybe.
probably early fall in front of, but we will having meetings with you too, even though we remember the council is the one that adopts the zoning regulations, but we will definitely want your input on things and, it's a lot, because there's a lot of things in the P O C D that we're trying to now pull out, and which is the whole goal, pull them out and put them in the regs, and that's a lot. So there's considerable zoning changes. There's gonna be,
Yeah,
a lot.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be interesting, so.
Okay, anything else, anybody?
But,
Not usually.
Anything but Jim.
just to go back to the renews,
Yeah.
you said that's looking really good.
Oh, inside, the apartments are gonna be beautiful. So I went in a tour, with Kevin one day. I had to go over there for something, and I went in. And the apartment, there's some beautiful ones looking out towards the water on the backside, but I'm telling you, the ones in the front, they're the windows that are sort of the arch windows you see. One of them, the one that I really love, you walk, that's the kitchen. So you're in the kitchen and then those three windows and you're looking down at, you can see like, where right on the corner, you're looking at the Warrigan and you're looking at the, what's it called? The Royal Punjab or whatever is right there. But it's gorgeous. Like I can just imagine they haven't put the kitchen in yet, but that's the kitchen with the windows. It's just lovely. And I saw the bedroom where it's going to be it's going to be nice. They're going to be really nice.
Are those all one-bedroom units?
I think so. I think they were, I think
Studios
they're
in one bedroom.
studios and the first floor is where all the accessible units are. So you come
But
in.
there's no elevators.
No,
No.
so on the first floor is the commercial space, and then on either side, there's two doors, I think, kind of there, and it'll come around, so you'll have rooms that,
Mhm.
wrap around. But it's really nice. I mean, it's, like I said, it's all just framed out, but if you can see that and envision it, it's gonna be beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
Never thought
Lot
I'd
going
hear
on.
yeah. Go Norwich.
Yeah,
that. Absolutely.
Come
Yeah,
on.
Main
All
Street
we
is
hear is
really
the
good.
negative stuff. It's all good. There's a lot.
all right.
All right, thanks, guys.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? I see Nick does,
I'll second it.
and seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye, all.
everybody.